Great. So guys, I showed up today to disrupt your reality just a little bit. And I showed up to maybe help you question your version of normal. And I showed up to inspire you to potentially create a little bit more impact in this world. Who here thinks it would be an amazing thing to be able to create a little bit more positive impact in this world? Yeah, I'm in the right room. So as you can tell, I'm not from here. I do not have an American accent, or no accent, probably, for you guys. I was born and raised in New Zealand, and I was always someone who wanted more. I wanted to be more. I wanted to evolve more. I wanted to give more. And I remember even as a child being really grateful for what I had, but also being a little bit dissatisfied knowing that there was more. Who's with me on that? Great. So what I'd love to do today in the short time I have with you is step you through what I believe to be the 5 levels of impact, to really help you and to inspire you and to show you that you can change and evolve and shift and grow through these levels. And through that, I'd love to share some of my personal story with you. Sound good? Great. Okay. So, as I said, I started out as a child in Auckland, New Zealand, and I always remember whatever I did, I worked really, really hard at it. And I remember sometimes being so young and I'd set these huge goals, and I remember saying to my dad, "Dad, do you really think I can do it?" And my dad always said to me every single time, he said, "You've got this. You've got this. Whatever you set your mind to, you can achieve." So I did just that. And my achievement at that age, obviously, was doing really well at school. Anyone else went to school here? And that was what you were meant to do, right? Work really hard, get good grades, go to school. Now, I very much followed the system and wound up at university, and I have a degree in architecture, of all things. Not that I've ever worked a day in my life as an architect, ever. But I wound up in that degree. And I remember this one moment at university, and I walked into a new lecture, this theatre, and I was sitting there, and there must have been about 500 people in the room. And I remember looking up at this lecturer on stage, and he said something along the lines of this. He said, "Welcome, future architects. Welcome to your future. I want you to picture what that is going to be like right now." And something in the pit of my stomach just dropped. Has anyone else had that sinking feeling when you just know you're in the wrong place at the wrong time? And I remember just knowing in that moment that the choices that I'd made to get me to that point were going to shift me into a life for the rest of my life that potentially I was going to be really unhappy about. And I remember I got up and I left and I walked out and I made a decision. I made a decision that I wasn't going to go down the traditional path. And I wasn't going to just go to school and go to university and get a 9-to-5 job and do everything right. So I was in a great place at this time because I knew what I didn't want to do, but I had absolutely no freaking idea what I did want to do, right? Has anyone else been in that situation where you're like, okay, I'm really clear on what I don't want to do, but I really need to get better at figuring this stuff out. So that's what spurred me into personal development. So this was when I was at level 1 of impact. All I was focused on literally was survival of self. I was in the mindset of, how do I figure out who I am? How do I figure out why I'm here? How do I generate enough money just so that I can actually live a lifestyle and look after myself? Who's being there? You cannot move past level 1 until you understand everything that there is to learn at this level. So I threw myself really deep into it, really deep into personal development. I was a little bit of a seminar junkie. You know, I went to course after course after course, attended so many events. I invested money in coaches that I just did not have, but I was willing to do, I know you did too, I can see in your face. I was willing to do literally whatever it took, okay? And I remember, I was doing all these different courses, investing in property. I was learning how to run businesses. I was learning how to trade currency. I was looking for a way out. I was looking for a way to create this sense of security, literally to survive myself. And I remember talking to one mentor, and I was exhausted. I was in this space where I'd spent so much money, spent so much time. I remember saying to him, nothing's working. I'm doing all this, but nothing is changing. And he looked at me and he laughed. And I said, "Why are you laughing at me? I'm trying to tell you what's going on here." And he said, "Oh, Regan, you don't know the 80-20 rule, do you?" I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Exactly, right?" he said to me, look, how much work are you doing on your mindset right now? How much work are you doing on your psychology? And I said, well, and he said, exactly. And he said, Regan, what most people don't know is that success is 80% psychology, 80% starting from here, internally, and then only 20% strategy and dynamics, right? And I thought, okay, but I trusted him, right? I trusted him, and I did the work. I started working on my own mindset, and it was amazing how quickly everything actually started to shift. I started seeing results actually externally in my life, and I started thinking to myself, this mindset stuff really actually works. Who here has done some mindset work in the past that's created a little bit of a different result for them, right? I was blown away by it, and I was addicted to that process, and I went through that process and became a coach. So I started working with people one-on-one on their mindsets, helping them have similar breakthroughs to everything that I had just gone through. And I remember this moment where I was sitting there and I was helping people one-on-one, and I really felt the shift. I felt the shift from survival to actually being a little bit free. Has anyone else gone through that level? Right, how good does that feel when all of a sudden it's not just about you, because your needs ultimately are pretty sorted, and you've shifted all of a sudden to impacting others on a greater level. So I remember sitting there and loving it and going, okay, this is what I want to do. I was filled with passion, I was filled with purpose. I loved helping my clients, and still do, have these incredible breakthroughs in their life. But I got to the point where I was overbooked and overworked. I really overdid it. And then I remember thinking to myself, there's got to be a smarter way. There's got to be a way where I can do this, where I can impact more, where I can create change, but on a greater level, where it's not just trading my time for money, time for money, time for money. And that is where I started focusing more on level 3, on how can I actually contribute more. You know, my needs were grounded at this point in time. I was safe, right? And all of a sudden I had this freedom where I was able to impact more, but I actually completely shifted my focus into, well, how can I start contributing on a greater level? And I remember being in a Tony Robbins event. Does anyone here know Tony Robbins? Right. I was sitting in a Tony Robbins event, and he was up on stage, you know, saying something crazy like, everyone shake their hands in the air, right? And everyone's like clapping and screaming. I was the person going, okay, these guys are a little bit insane, but I get it. There's some good energy going on in the room here. And then it hit me. I was like, he isn't doing this and creating this transformation just with one person, one-on-one. He's sitting in front of an entire room of thousands of people. And in that 1 hour or that 3 hours or that one day, he was creating so much change. And that's when I thought, that's what I'm going to do. So I started speaking to groups. I started running events, running seminars, and it felt so good. It shifted again. Has anyone else shifted to here when all of a sudden you're able to impact more? Awesome. So that was amazing, and it was so much fun to be in that space of, again, helping people now have breakthroughs in the groups, in that environment where, again, it wasn't just about you, it wasn't just about the other person, it was about a group of people collectively shifting their energy and creating the change, okay? And I remember this one moment where I actually traveled over to Bali with my fiance Lee, who's over there, and I remember sitting down and being so grateful, just going, you know, there's so many people who would love to be in my shoes right now, creating the impact, having the lifestyle, but something wasn't right. There was something deep inside me once again, and it took me back to that feeling of when I was at university that was just slightly out of alignment. And it's not like at university it was 100% out of alignment. For this, it was about 5%. And it would have been so easy to ignore it. Who's had that nudge before, where you've just told, it's not entirely right? It's not entirely perfect. And we're conditioned to think, well, you should just be grateful for what you have. You shouldn't want more because you're doing so well. You should just stay where you are because you might screw it up if you try something different. And I did a whole lot of work around that, trying to figure out what it was, and it took me back to the impact. It took me back to really realizing that although I was impacting hundreds of people a year, I knew deep down that I was born to impact millions of people. And doing what I was doing right now in that current business at that time, it wasn't going to get me there. So I had to make some pretty big choices around that. I remember saying to Lee in Bali, I'm not sure what to do. I mean, the fact that we'd gone over to Bali for 4 weeks and taken myself out of speaking to these groups every single week, it was having an effect on the business. The impact was dropping. And that's when I made a decision to create more leverage in my life. I also made a decision around who I am and who I really wanted to be. And I'd been trying for so long to hide a little bit. I was a little bit scared of truly stepping into my light. I was a little bit afraid of truly standing there and saying, well, this is me, and this is what I believe, and this is what I want to do. Who else has delved down their dreams for a little bit of fear before? Thank you for being so honest. So I made a decision. I made a decision that I was going to impact more. And the way I chose to do that was through online means, because it made a lot of sense that, hang on, if I could create the impact that I was creating in person, why can't we leverage that now in this day and age to create more impact and reach more people by doing this online? So that's when I started shifting all of my teachings and all of my coachings and all of my learnings online. And at the same time, I chose to really honor my message. And I did this by stepping into a personal brand, by going, okay, no more hiding. No more hiding behind brands, no more hiding behind companies, no more hiding behind people, and actually going, I'm Regan, and this is my message that I was born to share with the world, and I am here to impact millions and raise millions at the same time, and be okay to stand in that light. Because sometimes it's scary, right? Sometimes you feel like you're a little bit alone. And are you noticing that the level of comfort through these levels of impact get more and more and more and more uncomfortable? Hence, you have to grow more and more and more and more. So stepping into that was a big move, but it felt awesome at the same time. So, does anyone know what the last level of impact is? Sitting in that personal brand, running a multiple 6 and then 7-figure business, being location free, being able to impact thousands of people literally daily through online means, and yet I still wanted more. Greedy, right? I wanted more. I said to myself, there's something else out there. And as humans, we're either growing or we're dying. Nothing stands still. Your business is either growing or it's dying. Nothing stands still. So I sat down again and I did the work and I really thought about it and I thought, well, what's next? And for all the people that I'm coaching and training and helping and inspiring, what's next for them? Because I understood that if I wanted my clients and my community to grow, I had to grow. And if I wanted them to leap, then I had to leap first. So my focus right now, through layering these levels of impact, is bringing more philanthropic work into where I'm at. So I plan right now to go through into amazing parts of the world with the focus on education that I'm so passionate about and start raising money, impacting people and inspiring people to join forces to create schools and communities so they have better education in the world, okay? And here's the cool thing with the levels is that once you're here, the other stuff doesn't fade away. It's layered, okay? It's not like you get to a place of global contribution where you literally wake up and a little bit feel the weight on your shoulders that you're here to really create a massive impact. The other things don't drop away. Level 4 is still there, level 3 is still there, right down to your safety is still sorted. But it's an amazing feeling to be sitting at this level and actually giving other people permission to do the same. So my question to you right now, and you don't have to tell me, but just think in your head, where are you at? What level of impact do you sit at currently? And then where do you want to be? Not everyone wants to be here. I acknowledge that. But if you do, what are you going to do? What changes are you going to make? How do you need to step up? How do you need to step into your fear a little bit? How do you need to use the fear and understand that it's always going to be there, but use it to drive you, to motivate you, to push you forward? What do you need to let go of in order to step into the level of impact that you actually desire? And of course, why? Why do you actually want to do it? Because when you're here, you have to have something massive driving you. And it has to be bigger than just you. And then it has to be bigger than just your family. And then it has to be bigger than just your community. And then it has to be bigger than literally, in a global sense, something that is driving you forward. And you may have tapped into that. You may be nodding and going, I totally get this. I'm here and I'm so excited to hear this. Or you may be going, oh, maybe I hadn't thought about that. Maybe I need to create my why and my dreams and my vision and my mindset. Maybe I need to expand it a little bit so that I can step into becoming the person who was born to create this impact. So I showed up today, guys, just to expand your reality a little bit. And I showed up to disrupt your version of what is potentially quite normal. And I showed up to inspire you to step into who you are. And I showed up, of course, to give you permission to be the person that you were born to be. Thank you very much.